In the last episode, I gave 9 reasons I believe the Bible as history. In this installment, I've got 9 more reasons from archaeology to believe the Bible. Let's dig in. It's important to remember that not everything in the Bible is history. There is poetry, prophecy, letters, and more. But archaeology has confirmed the historical portions of the Bible over and over, and significantly has never disproven the Bible. Picking up where I left off in the previous video, number 10 is the Moabite stone, also known as the Meshe Stele. A stele is an engraved stone. In 1868, F.A. Klein discovered this inscribed basalt monument in Dibon in modern Jordan. Measuring 3.5 feet by 2 feet, it was written around 840 BCE by King Mesha of Moab. Mesha boasts of throwing off Israel's control, mentions King Omri of Israel, references the tribe of Gad, and it includes the earliest extra-biblical reference to Yahweh, one of the names of God in Hebrew. The stele's narrative closely parallels 2 Kings 3, verse 4, through chapter 6, where Mesha rebels against Israel. The stone was shattered after discovery because the locals thought they could get more money by breaking it into pieces. Thankfully, a forward-thinking staffer made a paper squeeze before its destruction, so reconstruction was possible. The result is a cornerstone of Semitic epigraphy, confirming kings and conflicts the Bible describes. And while scholars disagree as usual, some believe the Meshe Stele also includes a reference to the house of David, like the Tel Dan Stele, though the letter Tav in Beit, the word for house in Hebrew, is difficult to make out. If it is indeed a house of David reference, this discovery predates the discovery of the Tel Dan Stele by more than 120 years. As you know, if you've watched any other videos on this channel, all these topics grow out of my research for my biblical historical fiction series, Age of the Kingdom. 3 novels are available so far. The series tells the Bible stories from the viewpoints of fictional and little-known biblical characters against the backdrop of the reigns of King Saul, King David, and King Solomon. In the British Museum, you can see the Taylor Prism, a hexagonal clay cylinder with roughly 500 lines of Akkadian cuneiform, dated 691 BCE. Discovered in 1830, it records the campaigns of the Assyrian king Sennacherib, including his invasion of Judah in 701 BC, and references King Hezekiah of Judah. Sennacherib brags that he shut Hezekiah up in Jerusalem like a bird in a cage, which mirrors the biblical crisis in 2 Chronicles 32 and 2 Kings 18 and 19. Assyrian propaganda didn't admit failure, so it's significant that the cylinder doesn't claim Jerusalem fell, aligning with the Bible's account of deliverance from the siege. According to 2 Kings 18 and 19, God miraculously killed the entire army of Sennacherib, so he never took the city. He did take other cities in Judah, but not Jerusalem, and the Taylor Prism agrees, saying he besieged the city, but it doesn't record the fall of Jerusalem because it didn't fall, just like the Bible says. Speaking of King Hezekiah, facing the Assyrian siege while he was king in Jerusalem, he engineered a water diversion beneath the city known as Hezekiah's Tunnel. It channels the Gihon Spring to the Pool of Siloam, confirming 2 Chronicles 32:30 and 2 Kings 20:20. Plus, radiocarbon dating supports Iron Age origin. Rediscovered by Edward Robinson in 1838, the 1,750-foot water tunnel includes the famous Siloam inscription describing crews tunneling toward each other until they met. Scientific dating places construction in the late 8th to early 7th century BCE, consistent with Hezekiah's reign, though some research suggests a slightly earlier origin. Either way, the tunnel's engineering and the inscription anchor the biblical account in bedrock, literally. Discovered by Henri Pognon, the Zakkur Stele is a basalt stone from Tel Aviv in Syria. It was set up by King Zakkur of Hamath and records a coalition led by Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, names familiar from 1 Kings 19 and 2 Kings 13. It situates these Aramean kings in concrete history and shows the Aram-Damascus power that oppressed Israel and Judah. The inscription's early Old Aramaic lines, its provenance, and museum records firmly tie Hazael and Ben-Hadad to the region and era the Bible describes. Beginning in 1947, caves near Qumran yielded the Dead Sea Scrolls, over 900 manuscripts dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. Bedouin shepherds found the first scrolls. I've talked about them before in this video. They include the oldest copies of many Hebrew Bible books, like the Great Isaiah Scroll, pushing textual evidence for biblical manuscripts back 1,000 years, and show remarkable stability of the text across many centuries. They also reveal the beliefs and practices of a Second Temple Jewish community, sharpening our picture of the world around Jesus and the rise of early Christianity. In this video, I recounted the news last year that scholars had begun using artificial intelligence to confirm the dating of the scrolls, with very interesting results. They created an AI agent called Enoch, which was trained on manuscripts of which the dates were certain, and then had Enoch examine other manuscripts. Long story short, several manuscripts were determined to be older than first thought. Most significant was the Daniel scroll. Daniel is an apocalyptic book with obvious reference to the Grecian Empire, which would conquer the Medo-Persian Empire well after Daniel's death. Some scholars even see references to the Roman Empire in Daniel, so secular scholars have always said the book of Daniel couldn't possibly have been written in the 6th century BCE when the book is set, but had to have been written much later. In the previous video about the first 9 reasons to treat the Bible as history, I referred to the information about Nabonidus in this cylinder, which showed that Belshazzar was a real person and even explains why Nabonidus and his son Belshazzar reigned at the same time. Scholars had said Daniel was not credible because no reference to Belshazzar had been found until this cylinder, which proved the book of Daniel knew things the scholars did not. Anyway, Enoch moved the date of the Daniel manuscript as much as 100 years earlier than previously thought. And since this manuscript is a later copy, the date when the book of Daniel was originally written must be moved back also, meaning that the predictive elements of the book have to be taken seriously. So far, we have focused on the Old Testament, which is arguably more difficult because these events were further back on the timeline. But there is plenty of evidence of events in the New Testament as well, like other instances where secular scholars for many years tried to say that a biblical character never existed. They used to say Jesus Christ never existed, or maybe he was made up by the Catholic Church or something. At least, they said, there was no way to know exactly who Jesus was and what he did because you certainly couldn't trust the Gospels with all their miracle stories. So has archaeology confirmed the existence and ministry of Jesus? Let's take a look at a few examples. Beneath the Megiddo Prism, a 3rd century mosaic inside what's likely one of the earliest Christian worship halls, bears a Greek inscription calling Jesus God, decades before Christianity was legalized. It also records donors, including a Roman centurion and several women, giving us a rare early window into Christian worship. Again, skeptics claim Christians didn't consider Jesus God until much later, and New Testament statements about Jesus' divinity were added later. But the Megiddo Mosaic proves the early Christians did consider Jesus divine. The Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, who lived toward the end of the 1st century AD or CE, mentions Jesus twice in Antiquities of the Jews, once in Book 18, the debated Testimonium Flavium, and clearly in Book 20, naming James, the brother of Jesus, called Christ. Most scholars accept a core authenticity for these references, especially the James passage, offering non-Christian attestation that Jesus lived and was known as Christ. In Antiquities of the Jews, Book 18, Chapter 3, Josephus wrote, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him. For he appeared to them alive again the 3rd day, as the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day." Needless to say, many scholars believe this is a later addition inserted by Christians somehow, but it is in my own copy of Josephus' complete works. Josephus was certainly not a Christian and was even considered a traitor by the Jews because he was Jewish, but became a Roman during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Yet he produced one of the earliest histories of Israel outside of the Bible itself. This one is not really from archaeology, and there are a lot of other ancient literary references we could mention if we had time. Statements from non-Christian writers in the 1st century like Thallus, Celsus, Lucian, Mara bar Serapion, Pliny the Younger, and others. Most of them are critical of Jesus and Christianity, but in the process of criticizing, they confirm important elements of the Bible stories. In 2009, archaeologists announced the first early Roman period house identified in Nazareth, with features and chalk vessels typical of a Jewish family. Evidence the village existed and was inhabited in Jesus' time, countering claims by skeptics that Nazareth, where Jesus grew up according to the Gospels, was invented or hadn't been settled yet when Jesus was a child. One of the things skeptics have hung their hats on when they discount the Gospels is the fact that for a long time there was no mention in secular records of Pilate, the Roman governor who sends Jesus to death. But in 1961, during my lifetime, a Latin inscription was found at Caesarea Maritima on the Mediterranean coast naming Pontius Pilate prefect of Judea, the only contemporary stone inscription of Pilate. It confirms his title and presence in the province exactly as the Gospels portray. So that's my list of 9 more reasons I believe the Bible contains history. If you appreciate this content, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. See you next time for more stories from the Age of the Kingdom.